This is going to cause California to break apart because conservatives will never support it. The fact is that conservatives are 20, maybe 25% of California's population, and they've been shrinking. So conservatives don't have the votes to break off. If you want to split California up or you want to leave, all of California has to approve that. So the conservatives, who are a tiny group of California body politic, have to get permission from liberals to do that. And when Tim Draper tried to split California up with the 6 states, they did a lot of polls at that time, which showed an overwhelming majority, high amount of Californians were against splitting up California. Californians like California the way it is. Very few wanted to split it up, and those that did are a small percentage of the population, and they can't get the votes. Californians will never get a majority to go along with this. Well, there's been a couple polls. January, Reuters Ipsos did one, and Stanford. And then in March, Berkeley University did one towards the end. So over a 3-month period, January to March, 3 polls, Berkeley, Stanford, and Reuters Ipsos, studied this issue, and they showed 32% of Californians were interested in secession. 32% over a 3-month period. People are saying that this is just an emotional thing to politics right now. But over a 3-month period, you've had time to think about it. Additionally, the Reuters Ipsos poll asked if people supported secession, were against it, or weren't sure. Don't know was the question. Reuters Ipsos January 2017 poll showed 32% let's leave, and those who don't know, 15.5%, which means 47.5% of California, 47.5%, just below half of California, said they're not opposed to secession. That happened. Additionally, look at the CALEXIT movement. It just keeps growing, and it keeps going in the news, and there's people constantly supporting it. California politicians do not support this movement. Well, politicians do what is politically safe. We need to get the percentage up higher before they really come out and for it. However, I will point out that Evan Lowe in the Assembly said that he would file a petition for secession with the inauguration of America's president. He said, "I'm just kidding," but he said it. That's never happened before. Kevin De Leon, very high-ranking California politician, said he saw California, America as a foreign country to California. So he didn't say secession, but he said that. Dana Rohrabacher, who's a congressperson, said that he would recognize a vote for independence. Didn't want California to leave, but he felt they had the right to do it. Additionally, more politicians will come when it's more acceptable. Here's how we know that. Jerry Brown and a lot of politicians are saying that they're going to fight Trump and fight the federal government, and they don't care what he says about climate change or immigration. Jerry Brown said, "I don't give a damn what the federal government's do on climate change. We're going to do our own thing." And California operates as an independent nation on that, and told the world it's a separate nation, and was seen by the French government at the Paris climate talks as a separate nation on climate change. Additionally, California is approving a law on becoming a safe place for undocumented people. Now, when you look at the polls done about a month ago, I think February 2017 by PPIC, which is the think tank for our nation, what it showed was 65% of Californians said, ignore federal law on immigration. And 63% said, who cares what the federal government says on climate change? They didn't say secession, but they said ignore federal law. That's secession, people. But they didn't use the word. You say CALEXIT, it's 32%. You say ignore the feds and do whatever we want, it bumps up to 65%. 65% is the amount we need to make California independent. So phrasing is big. Californians already have this mentality. This is a fringe movement. Well, 47.5% of Californians said they're not opposed to secession. Reuters Ipsos. 46% of California voters are registered Democrats. So if the support for the Democratic Party is roughly equal from voting base to the population, then there's more people in California who are not opposed to secession than who support the California Democratic Party, which is the official party. Additionally, if you look at social media, which Facebook is the top of social media, and social media is the way people generally show their enthusiasm for participating in something. The largest group organizing for CALEXIT has 45,000 people on Facebook, and the California Democratic Party only has 44,000. So polling and participation on social media, CALEXIT is now bigger than the California Democratic Party, which is the official political movement, which means that you can't say that it's fringe unless you're going to say the California Democratic Party, the largest political party in California's body politic, is also a fringe movement. This movement's not real. It's all fake. That's not true. Go to Facebook. Look at the 45,000 people. There's another group with 11,000. There's another group with 1,000. Talk to your friends. Look at the polls that show 32% over 3 months. This is a real movement that Californians want. The founders of CALEXIT were registered Republicans years ago, and this is a plot by the Republican Party to hurt California. Well, Republicans are involved in the CALEXIT movement. Not all of them like Trump. Many Republicans are business people who like the idea of being able to lower taxes. CALEXIT is about social liberal values, or California values, but it's also about a better business climate. So we do have conservatives. Some Republicans don't like Trump, are pro-business, do support CALEXIT. CALEXIT has Democrats, Libertarians, Green Party, you name it. There is no pattern. We are pro-business, but we are very much for California progressive values. Republicans like this idea because A, our trade deals are held up by 5 to 10 years. That means businesses lose money. B, Silicon Valley loses money because it can't sell products to the international world because of our association, or California, with America. C, our roads are not working as well as they could as long as all other transportation systems, and that could be fixed by keeping $50 billion in our economy. D, a better education system means a better labor pool. And E, California gets rid of the federal government, that means 50% less bureaucracy. That's all pro-business. Now, if you support California values, you can also be pro-business. And so there are some Republicans who like this. And that's good because we need everybody in California to support CALEXIT. Now, another question is that this is a foreign plot. Here's why that's impossible. We're filing an initiative for Californians to vote for secession to America. You cannot be able to file that paperwork with the California government unless you're a citizen. You cannot collect signatures to qualify to be able to enact this law unless you're a citizen. And you cannot vote unless you're a citizen. So you can't even start the process or enact it unless you're a citizen according to the law, which means only California citizens are going to make this happen. If a foreign government was going to make this happen, they literally have to flood millions and hundreds of thousands and millions of people in, have them fake being California citizens, and then enact doing this. Now, if you have proof of that, great. But if you don't, it's impossible. California does not have a military. Well, California does have a military, but it won't need it. California already has a Navy, California State Military Naval Militia, and it has an Army, the California State Military Reserve. That's not the National Guard. It is a separate, independent Army, land, and Navy controlled by the California government. But we're not going to need it. California isn't going to be invaded by anybody. California's FDI #1, which means it's the #1 place that's most attractive for people to invest money in, which means the most number of billionaires from around the planet have invested money in here. If you look at every conflict over the last half century, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Somalia, you name it, they were disconnected from the international economy. They were poor. So you could get blown up and no rich people were going to lose money. California, if you blow it up or hurt it or invade it, the economy will get hurt. And then billionaires will get hurt from around the planet. So nobody can invade us without hurting their own rich people, and rich people don't allow themselves to lose any money. So we're not going to get invaded by anybody because we're foreign direct investment top. California is not a nation. Well, it is. So California is the size of Italy, Turkey, Japan, England, large nation states. And it has a culture that's different than neighboring areas. That's very evident now. Californians know we have California values. Kevin De Leon and other elected officials said that America looks like a foreign land compared to who we are in California. So a nation state size chunk that has a culture different than others. People say, well, what about language? It's still English, right? Spain and Italy speak the same language. Sweden and other Scandinavian countries speak the same language, but they get to be nations. England has the same language as Canada and Australia and a couple other places, but they get to be separate nations. Additionally, Stanford University is doing a study on a California language. So we have the size, we have a separate culture, we do have a language. Language isn't that important. And we have the economy. So we have what it takes to be a nation. And we have the infrastructure. You know, our government does things like a nation. Our governors already signed trade deals. Schwarzenegger and Brown, two governors back to back over a decade, signed trade deals with foreign countries, signed treaties on climate change. They call them memorandums, but they're really trade deals and treaties. That's acting like a nation. Two different academic reports came out by two different California universities stating that the way that California did climate change could not have been done by anything less than a nation. California becoming a nation require so much new bureaucracy that it's just impossible to afford. Well, that's not true. Here's why. Californians love laws. So we've made a regulation on everything. We made regulations that supersede or parallel federal regulations. So there's regulations on air quality at the federal level and then at the California level. Because of that, there's basically a California bureaucracy that does everything the federal government does, which means we don't really need to create much of anything. There will be a few things, but it's going to be really tiny because that problem of our love of bureaucracy as Californians is the grace that allows us to easily slip into nation state. California is in debt. Well, that's true. So California is in debt because of its workers that it has to pay retirement benefits and health care for. That's true. But it's a payment. You don't have to pay that off every year. An example, that debt has existed since the early 2000s. We went into the recession in 2008. California was the start of the worst recession the planet had seen in 70 years. Worst recession started in California. California was the worst hit, and it was paying that debt. It didn't even knock us out of the top 10 global economies. And we grew from almost the 10th back to 5 while paying that debt. So it doesn't stop us. It is an issue. But if you can survive the worst recession in a generation or 3, and you can be the worst hit, and you can pay off the debt, and you can grow your economy to higher than almost recognized superpowers, it's manageable. Additionally, if debt is the reason not to be associated, then you must leave America, because America's in more debt than California. Taxes will go up in California. Well, that's not true. California has raised its taxes because it doesn't get back its fair share of federal taxes. We put money into America, we don't get back the same amount. Other places get roads and schools paid for them by the federal government. You know, there's states in America that for every dollar they put in federal taxes, they get $1.50 or $1.70. You know, that would work for us, but we don't get that. So if we kept our money, we could actually lower taxes and build things that we need to get done. Additionally, with Silicon Valley making billions of dollars more, and all businesses who trade internationally, which is something like 40% of the California economy, making even more money, then you have a larger tax base. Plus, you're retaining your taxes, so taxes get lowered. Finally, one of the big critiques has been you should just work harder to get America to do the right thing. Climate change is something America is pursuing because California did not work with the federal government, worked with the international community, made them do it, and then they forced America to do it. That was the worst issue that our planet has faced in a century. And we got results in America to go in the right direction by ignoring the federal government. Armenian genocide is another example. LGBTQ rights is another example. California just said, we're going to do it on our own, go directly to the world, bypass America, and they did it, and then over time they forced America to do it. Those are three things we didn't use. Oh, stem cell research. We didn't use the federal government, we just did it, and we got America to go in the right direction. So being independent is actually the best for America progress. Well, that's it. You've heard the reasons why California should be independent, and you've heard all of the reasons that the news and anybody has thrown out there saying, oh, this can't happen. And I've shot them all down. There's no reason why CALEXIT can't happen. Thank you, and share with your friends and other Californians.